Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so sorry I've kind of fallen a little bit behind on all the socials, promotions, but I decided that the theme for this month was going to be all about shapes, mostly curvy shapes like circles, ellipses, parabolas, and hyperbolas. What that allows me to do is still talk about space, because those shapes appear in the orbits of the planets, and also kind of like rotational motion and all of that type of stuff is all tied into those curvy shapes. So even though it's more of like a math theme, we're still going to do quite a bit of science to it. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the problem of the week. So, I was kind of surprised that not more people answered the problem of the week this week. Um, but I get it. Like, times have been absolutely crazy. So, we are just gonna take a look at it. Okay. So the problem of the week, again, all of my problems of the week are randomly chosen from this amazing book, 1000 Playthings by Ivan Moscovich. And it says that astronauts in orbit feel weightlessness as they circle the Earth. But the feeling of weightlessness can be achieved in an airplane that performs one of the following maneuvers. Can you work out which one? So, in order to answer this question, we actually have to kind of go a little bit deeper into what is weight, how do we experience it, how do we measure it, and how can we trick our bodies into feeling like we are weightless. So, mass and weight might seem like they are the same things, but actually they are quite different um, quantities. Mass is the amount of matter you have. It doesn't change no matter where you are. So, like, unless you physically remove some of your mass, like chopping off your arm or other processes, your mass is not going to change. Your weight, however, is the measurement of the force of gravity acting upon your mass. So it depends on the gravity that you're in. So on Earth, when we jump, we come back down to the ground pretty quickly. But we have footage over here of the Apollo 11 astronauts jumping on the moon. And those spacesuits actually weigh on the order of like 200 or some odd pounds. So we really feel a different weight when we're on a different surface, aka the moon, or we would actually feel a lot heavier than we are if we went to, say, Jupiter, where the effect of gravity is like 20 times that on Earth. So, a little checking of your understanding. If we have little Hello Kitty astronaut, her mass is going to be the same on Earth, in moon, and in the vastness of space. That is because mass is constant. It doesn't change. Okay? But if I rank her weight, again, that's the effect of a force acting on her mass. She's going to experience the most weight on Earth. Then she's going to feel about 1/6 of her weight on the moon. And then she's going to feel essentially weightless on Earth. So, normal weight, about 1/6, and in space, she's weightless. It depends on the gravity that she's experiencing, kind of. So I did put quotation marks around the weightless, and I'm going to explain why that's the case. It's not because there's no gravity. In fact, there's a lot of gravity in space, but it's about how we experience a force. Okay, so what I mean by that is we don't actually feel force. All right, we experience a force either through pressure or acceleration. So, my favorite example of talking about a force with pressure is you are attending an outdoor wedding and you need to choose the right type of footwear. So, what type of footwear do you choose? Do you choose a wedge foot or do you choose a stiletto heel? Well, if it's an outdoor wedding, you definitely want to go with the wedge heel because your force that you are going to be pushing down or exerting on the ground is going to be the same. It's your weight, all right? Um, Whereas the pressure you're exerting on the ground is going to be way less in the stiletto heel. I'm sorry, excuse me. The pressure you exert is going to be way less in the wedge heel because your force or your weight is spread out over a larger area. In the stiletto heel, all of that force is concentrated into the heel and into the ball of the foot. That's also why your feet hurt so much more when you're wearing a stiletto heel than when you're wearing a wedge heel. No matter what, you're still putting a lot of force on yourself. So you know, up to you whether or not you wear super high heels. Okay, so that's an experience. That's an example of feeling a force through pressure. Another example of that would be a sharp knife versus a dull knife. A dull knife, you have to exert so much more force to cut an object, whereas a sharp knife has a very narrow edge, and so it's able to apply that force and translate that into an enormous amount of pressure, allowing it to cut through the object. The other way we experience force is through acceleration or a change in motion. So in a car crash, the car and the truck exert the same force on each other, but the car is completely totaled, and the truck has minor dings and scrapes. By Newton's third law, they exert an equal force on each other. But by Newton's second law, which I have on my shirt here, the amount of acceleration that the object experiences depends on its mass. The truck is so much more massive. So to in order to feel the same force or to exert the same force, it's going to have a teensy tiny acceleration. Whereas the car is a lot less massive. So it's going to experience a huge acceleration compared to the truck. In this case, acceleration is damage experienced. So, because the car is so much less massive, it experiences a lot more damage in the accident. It's the same thing as when a bug hits your windshield. The bug and the car exert the same force on each other. However, however, the bug is much less massive than the car, so it experiences a much greater acceleration and experiences so much acceleration that its body actually can't handle it and it gets smushed. All right. Whenever, whenever roller coasters talk about G's, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the acceleration that you feel. And so, like, thrill seekers love feeling the G's. And it's like the force of gravity being multiplied onto you. So we are experiencing a force right now. The gravity from the earth is pulling down on us. Also, the weight of the air above us is pushing down on us. This is atmospheric pressure, which is a type of force. We feel all of this, but because we're not changing our motion right now, I don't know about you, I'm just sitting here. Because I'm not changing my motion, I don't feel the effect of that force. Now, if I try to jump up, and then I will feel that force of gravity, because basically it'll pull me back down to earth. So we're feeling that force, and that force is going to either change our motion, or actually, no, that force is going to change our motion. Sorry. It's going to change our motion. So in order for us to do anything, we have to experience a force. So, like, for example, this pen, if I let go of it, because gravity is pulling it down, it also travels downward. Whereas if I exert a force upward, it's going to travel up. Okay? Kind of, sort of. So, let me just make sure we're good to go here. All right. So, how does this relate to our problem? So, the effect of the force that we're going to be talking about when it comes to weightlessness is the acceleration due to gravity. And this is that G force that I keep talking about. And again, it's not a force, it's an acceleration. And let me pull up my board here. Okay. It's an acceleration. And an acceleration, by definition, is a change in motion. So gravity is governed by the universal law. Sorry, I've been having really bad allergies, so my voice might just like go at any point. So, the force of gravity is defined by Newton's universal law of gravitation, where it says the universal constant gravitation, which is that huge number on the side, times the mass of object 1, the mass of object 2, divided by the distance between them squared. So this is one of the fundamental forces of nature. I posted a video a couple weeks ago of the 4 fundamental forces of nature, and I might post a link in the chat to it if you guys are curious about more information on that. So, sorry, allergies are just really, really bad today. Okay, so how does this relate to weight? Well, if we have a dude sitting on the surface of Earth, okay, like here's Earth. Fear my mad artistic skills. Okay. And just for simplicity's sake, we are going to say that he is standing on the surface of Earth. So we have our dude here, and he has mass M. Okay. Gravity is an attraction between two masses. And when we are analyzing the forces acting on an object, we call the effect of gravity on the mass the weight. And we calculate it by taking the object's mass and multiplying that by the acceleration due to gravity. Okay, so please note that I have a lowercase g and an uppercase g. So the lowercase g is an acceleration due to gravity. I'm going to just acceleration due to gravity. Let me move over here. Okay. And what we're going to do is we are going to set the weight, which again is the force of gravity acting on an object's mass, equal to the universal law of gravitation. So here's what happens when we do that. So we're going to set the object's weight as f of g. And then I'm going to say that it is equal to the universal constant of gravitation times the mass of the Earth times the dude's weight over the radius of the Earth squared. Okay. So, the reason why I'm using the radius of the Earth, when we're looking at the distance, what we're going to do is we are going to calculate that distance between the center of mass. And in a uniform sphere, which we are making a huge assumption that the Earth is a uniform sphere, the center of mass would be the direct center of the object. And I'm also just calling this regular R because I'm assuming he's standing at sea level. And I'm also assuming that his height is insignificant compared to the radius of the Earth. Okay, again, picture not drawn to scale. This is not Le Petit Prince, but it's just to kind of give an idea. So when I look here, some magic happens. The mass of the man cancels out. And that is why I didn't really care what his mass was. I just said, it's his mass. And that's also why we have the same acceleration due to gravity for any object that is falling in free fall. And we'll talk a little bit about what free fall is in a little bit. So to actually calculate the acceleration due to gravity, all I need to do is plug in the numbers kind of right up in here. So we're going to have g, and this is the acceleration of gravity for Earth, equals 6.67 times 10 to the 11th. I'm not going to put the units in. We can go through some dimensional analysis if you really are keen on that. 5.972 times 10 to the 24. Sorry, it's so little. Times. Oh, his stuff canceled out. Great. Times 6.371 times 10 to the 6 squared. Okay. So we're going to put this into our calculator because I don't know about you, I don't do multi-digit multiplication in my head. I am in awe of people who can just do that. And because it's scientific notation, I am going to use a special feature on our calculator called the E function. So if you have a TI-84 Plus, or if you have like really any sort of scientific calculator, what you can do is you can look for the button that has like double E. And when you click on that button, basically that double E represents times 10. So on a TI-84 calculator, the double E is the second. You have to click second and then the comma button to get the double E button. And so when I want to type this in, what I'm going to type is I'm going to type 6.67 E11. So that E is letting the calculator know it is a times 10. And then the 11 is the power of 10. Oops, and this should be negative. Sorry about that. That makes a huge difference. Do I not have a negative there? Hold on. I need to just verify that because that is going to make a huge difference. And that would be really embarrassing. Let me see. Universal law of gravitation. Tell me what G is. You tell me nothing.
I don't know if this is constant. I don't think it is, but I've been confused by some of the reaction I've seen to wanting to go down these orbits. And they'll be like, well, my person is at 30 minutes.
Gravitation constant. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's supposed to be negative.
That's what happens with
Why
my
is
Gemini
this?
too, honestly.
Why are you failing me, Google? I accept you as my Lord and Savior. Like, what is happening here? Constant. Oh.
Yeah.
-11. Okay, thank you. That took me like way longer than it should have. I apologize for that. And you guys probably could have totally helped me out with that. Okay, so we're going to do times 10 to -11 times 5.972 e to the 24 over 6.371 times, oh, sorry, we're doing e here. Just showing you kind of what to write into your calculator.
Yeah, the Halloween stuff is great. Does the... Am I crazy? The
Okay.
math looks slightly sharper than this.
All right. So we are going to just plug it in. The reason why that negative is so important is that the mass of the Earth is just huge. It's like massive. No pun intended. Um, so that -11 kind of puts it back down into like normal realm of numbers. 5.972 e to the 24th divided by 6.7371 e to the 6 squared. I dislike you. Go to. Oh, yep. I didn't finish up my quotation marks. And we get 9.81 meters per second squared, which is the very familiar standard value for G if you've taken any sort of physics in your life. Um, we tend to round that up to 10 to make our life easy because us physicists, we like to round and we like round numbers. So unless you are planning a rover landing on another planet where everything has to be calculated within such extreme precision, if you're doing like your physics homework, 10 is a-okay. If you're doing a lab, you should at least use 9.8. That kind of cuts down on your error a little bit. So the acceleration due to gravity on Earth is 9.81 meters per second squared. So then if I want to do this for the moon, because again, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to prove that you would weigh about 1/6 of the moon. We use the exact same formula and the exact same idea, except now instead of the mass of the Earth, I'm just going to go back to the beginning. Now instead of the mass of the Earth, we are now on the moon. Okay. So there's like a crater here and a crater here. Okay, I can't help myself. I like to try and draw little things. It also like reminds me of Le Petit Prince with his like volcanoes that he has to um chimney sweep out or else it like will explode his planet or something like that. Um if you love Le Petit Prince or The Little Prince, there is a French musical from like, God, now it's probably like almost 20 years old, but it is
I love it.
phenomenal. It is so good. I love it, love it, love it. So, even on the moon, weight is calculated in exactly the same way. Okay?
Yeah.
So, we're going to
It's
say the mass
the
of the
wind
dude
so it's
times the acceleration due to gravity of the moon. I'm just going to do a little sub m there. So that way we know we're talking about g of the moon, not g of Earth, equals capital G, mass of the dude times the mass of the moon over the radius of the moon squared. Okay? So then all we have to do is cancel out our mass
so
and
there's
then plug in our values.
things to it that I don't understand at all.
So let's see. The G, again, it's the same G. That's the beautiful thing about constants.
Sounds like a book.
And then the mass is 7.31.
Oh wow, yeah. Pink
I can't read
stuff
that.
right
Hold on.
across the top of the cabinets there.
10 to the 25? Let me see. Is it more massive than Earth? That doesn't make any sense. 10 to the 22. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I guess it's time for someone to get some
oh,
glasses. My goodness. Yeah, because I was like, the moon is definitely lighter than the Earth because it's smaller.
I
Um,
think so because I don't think the murderer
and then the
would be fit
radius is
flying off the moon.
1.74 times 10 to the 6 squared. So we're going to go ahead and plug all that into our handy dandy calculator. Okay,
Oh yeah, I bet.
and see
I
what
will
we
plug in
get.
my own stream too.
6.67
Plug it in.
e to negative 11 times 7.348 e to the 22.
Nope, I can't post. Yeah,
Oh
no.
my god, what is your deal? Okay, 6.67 e to the negative 11 times 7.348 e to the 22 equals divided by
Yeah, I don't
1.74
use the
e to
operator.
the 6 squared.
But it's waiting for me to vote, even though I cannot.
Okay. And so then the gravity on the moon, or excuse me, the acceleration due to gravity on the moon is going to be
Yeah, I have my
1.6
slot in there.
meters or 1.62 meters per second squared. Now, I had said that you're going to feel about like 1/6 of the weight. So, again, your weight is calculated by taking your mass times the acceleration due to gravity. So, if I look at my weight on Earth,
Was this a dead body or a living thing?
on Earth,
Trade Rex's cheesy trade Rex.
that's going to be my mass times gravity, or times 9.81, right? And then what I could do is I can do the ratio of that to my weight on the moon. Sorry, I just have to say moon like that. My mass
Let
is
me.
the same, okay? And that's the important thing to keep in mind. Your mass stays the same. So then we have 9.81 divided by 1.62. And then if I divide that, wait, 62,
Yeah.
I get about 6. So that means that the Earth, or the effect of gravity, the acceleration due to gravity that we experience, is 6 times more on Earth, or the moon is about 1/6 of the acceleration due to gravity on the Earth. Okay? Cool. Again, we're getting to the answer of our question. There's just a lot in here that I want to give some background on. So, if we are in space, Space. Getting bored with space now. Never. I will never be bored with space. What we have to do is we have to take the acceleration, or we have to do the gravity calculation in reference to something. Okay, so basically, the astronauts, as far as they've gotten, have been like the moon, right? Um, so sorry, I just need to see and make sure everything's here, good here. One thing to note about the universal law of gravitation is that it gets weaker the further away we go. In fact, it gets weaker with the square of the distance of the distance. What that means is, like, if we're here on Earth, okay, and if you're standing on Earth, you feel 100% of that effective gravity, okay, from the Earth. But then if you are, say, double Earth's distance, so say you are like another r, another radius of the Earth away, your effect of your gravity, so the acceleration due to gravity, aka the weight that you are going to feel, your g is actually going to be a quarter of your regular one. So let me back up and let me show you what I mean. On Earth, our g equals the universal gravitation constant over the radius of Earth squared. Okay? If I go out to twice the radius of Earth, so basically if I start orbiting around the Earth at an altitude of the radius of Earth, then when I do my universal gravitation calculation, I would get mg equals g mass of the Earth over parenthesis 2re squared. That parenthesis is really, really important because the square actually affects everything on the inside of the parentheses. So it's going to affect the 2, and it's also going to affect that radius. So then, sorry, and the dude's mass cancels out. So, like, the g in orbit is going to be g me over 4 re squared. Well, what happened to my red one? Sorry. Well, GME over RE squared, that's just our regular gravitational acceleration on Earth. So if we go up to one extra radius of Earth, we're actually going to experience a fourth of the weight we normally do. Okay? And then if I double that, I'm going to experience an eighth. So essentially, when you get far enough away in space, you're no longer feeling that acceleration due to gravity. But there's not just the Earth to contend with. As you get further away from Earth, you start getting attracted to the moon. The moon is exerting a gravitational force. We experience that every single day in the form of tides. Okay, so the moon has a pretty strong pull. So it's going to start exerting a gravitational force on you. So you're going to start experiencing a pull from Earth, a pull from the moon, and a pull, honestly, from every other planet in the solar system and technically in the universe. It's just the further away we get, the further away we get um, between the two center of masses, then the weaker that attractive gravitational force is. Okay? But what's really, really happening when we are orbiting is that we're actually falling around the Earth. And because we're experiencing a free fall, if you will, sorry, I'm just going to turn that off. Because we're experiencing a free fall, if you will, we feel weightless when we're in orbit. And let me show you what I mean by it's falling around the Earth. Okay. So, when we have when an object experiences a force, it's going to just move. Okay. So, like for example, if I push this ball, hold on, just want to make sure that I'm doing this right. Okay, so for example, if I just push this ball, it's going to travel in a straight line. Okay. But if I take a very similar ball, except now I have a string attached to it, I'm going to kind of hold the string like so. When I push it, it actually wants to travel in an arc. Okay, it's going to travel in a circular motion. So actually, an easier way to see this is like this. Let me do this because that didn't really show what I wanted. Okay, when you experience a force, you just travel in a straight line, right? Okay. Now, if I do the same thing with this ball, but if I continually apply a center force, if I continuously pull on the string while this ball is moving, oh, jeez. Okay. What actually happens is that it starts going around in a circle. Let me make that a little bit smaller. Okay. But if I let go of this string, which I'm not going to do because I don't want to hit myself in the face. If I let go of the string, the ball will actually start traveling again in a straight line. So you can see this effect when sparks are coming off of a grinding wheel. If you've ever watched like Forged in Fire or any sort of blacksmithing YouTube series, when they're grinding on their grinding wheel to sharpen their blades, they have all these like metal sparks shooting off, and they always shoot off in a straight line because objects naturally want to travel in a straight line. Okay. So, when an object enters into orbit, let's say that Hello Kitty. Let me move. Let me move me. Okay. So, let's say that we have Hello Kitty astronaut floating in space. She is traveling horizontally, but when she comes close to, say, Earth or any other planet, she is going to experience an attractive force to that planet. Now, because that force is perpendicular to her motion, that's going to pull her around the planet. She's still traveling straight forward to her perspective, but now to our perspective, which is an outside viewer, she's traveling like downward. But again, she's still being pulled into the earth. So that way, that continual perpendicular force is causing her to slingshot around the earth. So, um, NASA scientists and other space agencies actually use this effect. This is called a gravity slingshot to help give their space rockets like a little bit more oomph. Because when you're designing a space rocket, mass is a huge thing, and you actually need to maintain a pretty quick speed in order to get into these orbits. Once you're in them, because there's no air particles or anything like that in space, you you'll just continue moving at that same speed. Again, that's Newton's first law. Um, you'll continue moving at that same speed without slowing down. But to get to that orbit, you have to achieve a particular speed to counteract with that gravitational force to get you to move into circular motion. So if she does the basically the slingshotting around a planet or like the moon, she'll then uh, leave orbit. If she has enough speed because of that, she can actually break orbit and travel off in whatever other direction space cats go. So, when you're orbiting a planet, when you're maintaining that orbit, you're actually free falling with style. And it's a precise set of calculations required, um, but it's actually a pretty easy setup. The preciseness comes in the measurements, and that's also why we have to have fuel on our satellites or solar panels on our satellites to be able to constantly give a little adjustment here and there to help it maintain its speed. um so it can continue to do that orbit. And that's also why like the planets don't go careening into the sun. Even though they're being pulled by the sun, they're traveling at very high speeds. And so the interplay between their linear speed and the gravitational attraction that they feel with the sun keeps them going around in those circles. So when you're experiencing free fall, that means that we are only experiencing the force of gravity on us, and therefore we are only subject to the acceleration due to gravity. So, a prime example of this are thrill rides, where basically um, raised up to a certain height and then dropped. When you drop, you actually feel like you're kind of floating, or you feel weightlessness, or people say like, their stomachs go up into their throats sort of thing. That's not what's actually happening. But that sensation of falling and your inertia kind of catching up with everything else makes you feel weightless. So, this is how we simulate weightlessness here on Earth, because we're always going to have the force of gravity acting on us. But if we are falling at the same rate that gravity is accelerating us, then we kind of don't feel like anything's happening. So, we kind of also need to talk about how we calculate our weight. So, the way we usually calculate our weight is a way that all of us hate, which is standing on a scale. And so gravity is pulling on your mass, and the scale is responding to that pull by pushing back up on you. This is called the normal force. So, anytime you exert a force on a surface, by Newton's third law, it exerts a force back on you. So it's kind of like, don't hit someone because their face hits your hand back with the same amount of force. So scales respond to this. And we can actually kind of trick scales a little bit by kind of pushing ourselves up off the scale And so when we're holding ourselves up when we step on the scale, it doesn't measure as much weight because we're not pushing down against it as much. So if I was standing on a scale in the Tower of Terror, I would be able to see the needle on that scale move back and forth as I'm accelerating upwards. When I accelerate up, you feel like everything's kind of pushing down on you. And so you would be pushing harder against the scale, so it's going to say like you weigh more. Okay? Then we go up, and when we fall, we are matching the acceleration due to gravity, and so we're not pushing against the scale at all. It's almost like we're holding ourselves up off of it a little bit. So that it's going to measure us at 0. Then when we accelerate back up, you kind of feel pushed in. Same deal. Okay? So that's how we can kind of trick the scale on our weights here. So how does this apply to the problem of the week? My God, I've been talking for an hour and we still haven't answered the question. I'm so sorry. I just get so excited about talking about Newton's laws. They're really, really applicable to like everything. Okay, so on the problem of the week, the plane is going to simulate the sensation of weightlessness in one of these loops. So in order to answer it, we have to figure out kind of what are the forces being experienced by the people inside the plane during the loop. All right. So let's talk about the outside circular loop. And let me get my board up here. Okay. So when an object is forced to travel in a circle, and yes, pun intended, okay? When it's forced to travel in a circle, in order to travel in a circle, it has to experience an overall net force that points towards the center of the circle. So this is called the centripetal force. So centripetal force. It is not a real force. It is a net force, a center pointing. I'm going to do this part in red. Net force. Very important. Okay. Net means we are adding up all the forces acting on our object. Okay. So if we are in an outside circular loop, that means, okay, it's almost like a roller coaster car where we start on the top and then here we're going to be on the outside and then we're on the outside here and then we're on the outside. Okay. So one thing to keep in mind is that your weight or the force of gravity always points straight down at all times. Okay. So this is going to be the force of gravity because it is pointing towards the center of the earth. It does not care what orientation you have. And actually, let me draw my dude. Boop, boop. Boop, boop. Boop. What a thrill seeker. Okay. All right. Then, the other thing that we experience is we experience the the weight that we would experience. Okay, so the effect of being weightless means that we don't feel like anything is pushing on us. Okay, so when we are when we are up here, let me draw my
I
little.
was not intentionally muttering to me. That was a conversation I was attempting to have with all y'all, but okay.
The car is kind of holding us in, and this is going to be my normal force, and I'm going to represent that with an N. On the outside of this loop, my normal force is actually going to be pointing away. And then on the top here, it's actually going to be pointing down. And then on the side, the car is kind of pointing me like this. I also I assume I would have like straps on me. And in order for us to execute a move like this, what we need to move in a circle, we need a net force pointing towards the center. So that probably means that there's like brakes or something, like the grips of the car would be pointing towards the center. So that's probably like friction. And then here, the brakes would have to be working really, really hard, because it'd be pulling up on me because it has to counteract all these downward forces.
Okay, one of the two of you was lying though,
Okay.
because I voted for clockwork too. So
Um,
you only got two votes.
so in this case, on the outside loop, we would actually feel more heavy during it. We don't really experience any sense of weightlessness here because of the interaction between the car and ourselves.
That makes things
Um,
work.
Earth is always pulling us down, but when we're kind of on that like outside loop, we we have like the car's pushing us out, but the grips of the car are what's keeping us in. Basically, the seatbelt is kind of pushing against us, and so you would feel the seatbelt working really hard to kind of keep you in place. Um, so the other type of loop that we could experience is what's called an inside loop. Do,
The
do, do,
monos
do,
had a lot of
do.
new stuff, some of which is cool and some of which broke the game the most.
Okay. And this is the one that we normally see on roller coasters because like the outside loop just it's too hard for the car to work, whereas an
Oh
inside
shit.
loop,
So Rowan is not the killer. So it's
the
probably
car
me.
is on the inside.
They didn't let me live.
There's my dude.
Okay. Well, I was doing the spinny thing, electrical, and then I started running towards reactor. And when I saw there was
And
only
there's my
50
dude.
seconds left and nobody was hitting a button, and then you guys finished.
Okay. So here again, gravity is always going to be
I will
pointing
vote yes
straight
because
down.
it's a reason I have been doing tasks all day.
And then on the sides here, the car is really going to be what's providing that
Oh, so that
centripetal
makes
force.
wait. So
But
is
at the top here,
only those two
the
clockwork or
car doesn't actually have to provide any force on there because
so did
your
I?
weight
And you won.
maybe is going to be enough force to provide that overall center seeking
So
force,
you somehow won.
in order to keep us going around in this loop.
That's
However, it is for the barest instant. It's at the very, very tippy top, and you are still traveling. And the moment you travel a little bit beyond the top of the loop, you're going to start
it.
experiencing some force pushing on you. If you've ever ridden on a roller coaster before, you know that like when you're going up the roller coaster, you can really feel all that pressure on you because you're almost being like pushed back into your seat. And then when you come up to the top, it's almost like this release sort of thing. You're still in your seat, and actually, you are, if the engineers did their job right, you're perfectly safe. You wouldn't even really need restraints to stay on the top of your seat here. But then as you come down the side, you start feeling that force push down on you again because of the interplay of the forces. So the inside circular loop or the outside circular loop are not going to cut it. They are going to provide some brief moments of kind of like, whoo, where it's kind of like airtime whenever you kind of go off on like a ski jump or something like not a ski jump, like a little mogul, or like if you're driving your car in San Francisco and you hit one of those hills at the right speed, you can get some airtime. The answer is we have to do a parabolic loop, because if we do a parabolic sorry, not a parabolic loop, more like an arc. If we do a parabolic arc, we are not held by the restraints of moving in a circle or moving in a loop. In fact, a lot of objects naturally travel in parabolas when we throw them. This is just projectile motion. So, anytime an object experiences a force at an angle, at some angle, it is actually going to travel in a parabola. Okay. Ooh, you can't really see that. Sorry. Let's try that. A little bit better. Okay. It's going to travel in a parabola. So, what planes will do in order to mimic weightlessness for like a significant amount of time is they will travel up to a certain point. Okay. And then at this point, they kill the engine. Kill the engine. Because they were traveling with enough speed, the plane is going to continue traveling upward for a little bit, and then it's going to start traveling down. And when it gets to a certain point, we are then going to reignite the engine. And so then we would start the engine again.
It does seem to be actually because the French royal family are kids.
Okay. So what we do here in this green portion, it's a little hard to tell the colors. We are actually only under the influence of gravity. So we're in what's called free fall. So basically, when you get to this point, as the plane is going up, you might start to feel like, oh, okay, I'm not feeling that push of the plane on me. Then, definitely, as you reach the top of your arc, once you go past it, you and the plane are falling at the same rate. So it's almost like you are, you kind of start floating away from the plane and you are experiencing weightlessness. Then, at a very precise moment when it's safe to do that, they'll start the engine again. And because there's going to be an outside force, you're going to feel that kind of overall acceleration, and all of a sudden you start feeling weighted again. So, sorry it took me like an hour to do that, but this is the answer to the problem of the week. You need to do a parabolic arc. It's kind of amazing to watch these planes do it, and I think like it's also very very expensive. But there's an amazing OK Go music video where they do this and they do like multiple jumps. So they'll be weighted and then all of a sudden they'll just start floating and moving around. So I will definitely post that link on Facebook when I post the stream on YouTube. So yeah, that should be pretty cool. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much for sticking around during that little meander through Newtonian physics and laws and stuff. Um, so I kind of just love the interplay of circular motion and gravity. And one of the really cool effects of it is called geosynchronous orbit. And what geosynchronous orbit means is that the satellite is basically locked into orbit around the Earth, and they orbit at the same rate, so the satellite basically stays in the same spot all the time. This is very, very important for our entertainment purposes. So, we use satellites to communicate and also to transmit information, all sorts of information. The same idea. So, like, sorry, what am I trying to say? Blah, 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 blah. Your cell phone works off satellites. Your TV works off satellites. We also use satellites to communicate to our rovers on other planets. But we only have a window of communication time because planets be in the way. So geosynchronous orbit is really important for our entertainment satellites because we want that satellite to only hit one part of Earth and we want it to hit it all the time. Because could you imagine if it was like, sorry, you can only use your cell phone between the hours of 9 a.m. and 2 p.m.? It's like, no, that wouldn't happen. Also, like TV. I mean, I have a hard enough time like waiting for my favorite shows to stream that if it was like, I'm sorry, you can only use the streaming services from this time to this time because our satellite's not in place. Not going to happen. So, what a geosynchronous orbit does is it orbits around the Earth at the same rate that the Earth completes one rotation. So, a rotation means that an object is turning about itself, and the Earth rotates once every 24 hours. So, this means we are doing one rotation in 24 hours. Okay? So what we want to do here is I want to figure out how far away do we need to place a satellite in order to get geosynchronous orbit. So I'm looking for this altitude. Okay. And some important information which I totally forgot to put down here for us. In order to calculate this, I need to know the mass of the Earth and I need to know the radius of the Earth. And I don't actually need to know the mass of the satellite. Assumptions we're making. We are assuming that Earth is perfectly spherical. We are also assuming that the orbit of the satellite is a perfect circle. So, in order to make this work, we are going to use the idea that the centripetal force, which is that center seeking net force, is equal to the gravitational attraction between the Earth and the satellite. The reason why we can make this assumption is up in space, gravity is the only force you're going to experience um, on a noticeable scale, I guess I should say. To calculate the sorry, my brain just went burr. To calculate the centripetal force, we are going to take the mass of the satellite times its linear speed over the distance it is away from this from Earth. No, sorry, from the center of Earth. So this is going to be r plus the radius of Earth. Okay, we are assuming that r is on the same order of magnitude as the radius of Earth. That it's far enough away that we're like, okay, yeah, it's going to make a difference. And then again, that's going to be equal to g mass of the Earth over this distance squared. Okay. Simplifying this up, the mass of the satellite does not matter. Okay. So the mass of the satellite didn't matter so much for establishing the orbit. What does make it matter, or where we do need to take it into consideration, is getting it up into there. So like, how much fuel do we need to like get up there? Excuse me. We can also cross this out because it's square here. And so what I get is I get v squared equals g mass times the Earth over r plus radius of Earth. Now I want to solve for r, and that my variable that I want is in the denominator. So I have a nifty little trick that might make math teachers angry, but it works. I just assume that I kind of write it as a fraction, right? And what I can do is I can actually just switch the position of those two expressions, and I would get an equivalent fraction. So I'd have r plus re equals g over me, which is just the same, nothing's changed, over v squared. Now this velocity is a linear velocity, and so what I have is I have a rotational velocity. I know how fast I'm rotating. I'm rotating once every 24 hours. So one rotation in linear senses is going to equal the circumference of that circle. And to find the circumference, I go 2 pi r, and again it's going to be r plus re equals, okay, here's the annoying thing, equals 24 hours. The annoying thing is my universal constant here is in seconds. So your constants determine what units everything has to be in. Okay. And so I need to make sure that everything, according to my constant, mass is in kilograms, distance is in meters, and time is in seconds. My mass that I have for the Earth, I believe, was 24 or 6 point something something. I'm going to look it up. But it's in kilograms. My radius of the Earth was also in meters. So I'm not too worried about that. But I do need to convert my 24 hours into seconds. So to do that, I'm going to use something called the system. I first learned this in chemistry class, and it legit changed my life. I use it like more than anything I've ever used in school, really. So for 24 hours, I want to change that into seconds. So I need to use my conversion factor. 1 hour equals 60 minutes. Okay. So then what I want to do is I want to write this conversion factor. It's kind of like I have two parts. I have a 1 hour and I have a 60 minutes. I want to write the 1 hour. I'm going to put it down on the bottom here because I want hours to cancel. And then that means the 60 minutes has to go on the top. I still want seconds, so now I have to go 1 minute equals 60 seconds. And again, I'm going to put the 1 minute on the bottom because I want the units to cancel out. So by having them like that, by setting up this grid, I know whether or not I need to multiply or divide by the conversion factor. In this case, I'm going to be multiplying everything across. And then you multiply everything on the bottom, but in this case it's just 1, so we're going to kind of ignore it. So that means that 24 hours equals, let's see, 24 times 60 times 60. So just FYI, there's 86,400 seconds in a day. And if you are a musical theater fan, you know how many seconds are in a year. Anyways, I will not sing that right now, but I kind of totally want to. Okay. So, to figure out my speed, because I need V, V equals distance over time. Well, my distance is going to be 2 pi r plus re over my time, which is 86400. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in over here. So then I have r plus re equals g me over, let's go ahead and do this, over 2 pi r plus re over 864. Oh no, we have a multi-layer fraction, or a nasty fraction, as I like to call them. So when you divide by a fraction, it's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So what we can do, that stays on the denominator, and then this part just comes up here. And then I do want to move, I do want to combine like terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up multiplying both sides by r plus re. So that just ends up squaring this. Okay, this is why I love whiteboards. Okay, I'm at a point now that I feel like I can start plugging stuff in. So to help me, I need to look up, the mass of Earth. Mass of Earth. Mighty fine Earth, you might say, round. So this is going to be 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11 times 5.972 times 10 to the 24 times 86400, all divided by 2 pi. Okay, and this is going to equal r plus re squared. So let's see what we get. 6.67 e to the negative 11. Let's see, do we have anything here? Oh my god, that's hilarious. One of the songs I was played was by giant, big giant circles. That's hilarious. Okay, anyways, sorry. The universe, man. And then we're going to divide that by 2 pi. Okay, so we get a huge number. But what I want to do is I want to solve for r. So I'm going to end up square rooting it. And that makes something a little bit more manageable. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take up. Sorry, the sound of the squeak. Okay, so what we get is we get, when I plug it in, I get r plus re squared. I got 5.4775 times 10 to the 18. And then again, I want to solve for r. So that means I'm going to have to take the square root of both sides. Okay, because the square root is the opposite of the square. So then I get r plus re equals square root of that, which is 2.3404 times 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, okay. And then what about the radius of the Earth? Radius. Earth in meters. 6.6. 371 times 10. Oops, sorry. Plus times 10 to the 6 meters. Ooh, so it has to be like pretty far out there. So then we subtract 6.371 e to the 6. And so then the distance that the satellite has to be in order to maintain this geosynchronous orbit is going to be 2.334 times 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Woo! That is quite a ways away. So, in case you were wondering, that is 2 billion meters. That seems really far. I wonder if I made a mistake. Hold on. I feel like I might have made a mistake. Centripetal force equation. Nope, that one's good. Well, you know what? I'm gonna hold by it, and yeah, that feels pretty good. If you notice my mistake, please do message me. I'm not that type of teacher where I'm like, oh, how dare you notice my mistake. I'm like, oh my god, thank you so much for noticing my mistake. Um, I believe that we are all human, and we're all just doing our best here. So we can use this idea that in order to travel in orbits, it's the same as the centripetal force. And that's kind of a lot of the assumptions we make on general calculations for astronomy. Now, we're going to talk next week about the actual shape of planetary orbits, which I'm sure a lot of you know. The planets the orbits are not perfect circles. We do use circles to kind of like approximate it, to kind of see like to do like quick calculations. But the planets actually orbit in ellipses. And so they have their own whole set of laws and stuff. So we're going to be talking about that next week. So I want to draw some Celtic knots. And I hope you guys want to see that. So the reason why I'm bringing up Celtic knots in my week of circles is you can basically draw Celtic knot patterns if you have a compass. And the way a compass works is we have basically a pencil and a pointy bit. And the pointy bit sticks in a piece of paper, and the pencil will draw the set of all points that are the same distance from that center. That is the formal definition of a circle. By using this compass, you can actually create a lot of really awesome shapes. We can also create triangles, squares, bisectors, perpendicular bisectors, triangles, etc., etc. And by combining these curves, we can also create Celtic knots. So actually, I'm going to walk through a couple of constructions with you guys right now. So let me just get some paper. Oh yeah, actually, I'm going to use some scratch paper. Okay. So, hold on, I'm trying to find like. Okay. All right, so whenever I have to draw a circle, I'm the type of person who I will move my paper and not the compass. The reason for that is, especially this one, this compass doesn't really like to stay. Ah, dislike this compass. Hold on. Okay, if I draw it really lightly, let me get my pen out. So again, a circle is a set of all points from the center. Okay. All right. So we can kind of see it there. I'm using some scratch paper, so sorry if you can see that bleed through. Um, we can use a circle to create a lot of our regular polygons that we talked about, my gosh, now 2 months ago, back in January. So if I want to create an equilateral triangle, what I want to do is I actually want to take my compass and keep it at that same distance. But instead of putting the pointy bit at the center, I'm actually going to put the pointy bit on the circle itself and mark out two arcs that are the same length. Or actually, I'm just going to go ahead and draw the full arc. And again, okay. So we have these intersection points here. And then I'm going to put the pointy bit of my compass on that intersection point and do the same thing. And I'm going to keep doing that around the circle. Again, just making sure I'm keeping that same. And if I keep doing this, I actually create the daisy pattern. I'm sorry, my compass is not very good. annoying. Which is annoying because it's supposed to be like a better one. Some compasses have like a lock you can do. Oh no, that's
Marina,
just
what the fuck was that? Marina, what the fuck was that? I came running
that
into the hallway and
I
you just
just
had that
discovered
fucking
holds all the extra leads.
Did you
Who
not see
knew?
me coming? Was I glitching through the wall again?
Okay, so basically we have intersections here.
I ran up the hallway and saw you stop
Okay.
that. I don't know what you were
So
doing.
what I can do, this is kind of like our basic division of the circle,
No, what?
and it divides it into 6 even parts. And if I connect these lines,
Yeah, but clockwork is always optional.
if I connect every single point to the ones next to it, I create a regular pentagon. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was an equal around it. I made a split. I know. I made a split decision, and it was a stupid split decision.
And so, because a circle is so regular and it's a set of all points that are equidistant, I know for a fact that this hexagon is also a regular hexagon, um, meaning that all of its
Yeah, I
sides are the
thought that
same
too,
length
except
because it has to fit inside the
yeah,
circle. If I wanted to draw an
yeah.
equilateral triangle,
Oh,
instead of
I was gonna
connecting all the
tell you to play
points, what I could
last.
do
Yep.
is connect every other point.
This is kind of a cheaty ghost tower, though.
Okay. And I can use this idea. Oh, wow, sorry. That did not show up hardly at all. I think I need to play with the contrast of the camera. Sorry about that. And the equilateral triangle is one of the base shapes, and in a lot of mythology, it has kind of like a significance. Um, we could also create a square inside the. We can create a square inside the circle by connecting basically the diameter. So if I wanted to create a square, actually, what you want to do is you want to. Ooh, let me cut it. Okay, so I'm going to draw my circle. Let me see if I turn on this light. Can you guys see that? Kind of. Let me play with the contrast real quick. See if I can maybe do something so. Okay, that tells me I need to get white paper. Oop, that wasn't good.
You don't say it backwards. You gotta say it upside down.
Okay, let me see. If I do this, my hands look awful, but if you guys can see it, then it's worth it. Oop. Yeah, you can kind of sort of see it. Okay. If I go back to the default. some reason, it's not wanting to do circles. Okay. Anyways. All right. Yeah, I think we'll keep it at the defaults and not really worry about it. Okay. All right. Oh, I didn't even realize that. So, anyways, so again, what you want to do is you kind of want to always start with like your base circle. So your base circle is kind of creating that hexagon shape, and then within the hexagon we could create a triangle. Or if we want to create a square, what we need to do is we need to first draw a circle.
I tried to cut off your two sus people followers.
Okay. So again, I'm going to just darken that circle for us a little bit. It's not going to be precise, but it's fine. Okay. And then I need to mark out the center here. So the definition of a diameter is that it has to go through the center of a circle and it goes to both sides. So I'm just going to draw any old diameter, like so. Then what I want to do is, I know that the diagonals of a square are perpendicular bisectors of each other. So what I want to do is I want to draw a line that's perpendicular to this diameter and bisects it. So here's how we're going to use our compass to do that. What you want to do is you want to place your pointy bit of your compass on the part of your diameter that intersects with your circle. You want to open your compass so that it is wider than half of the diameter. You don't want to go like too wide with it because then it's just going to kind of get crazy. So I'm going to go to about here. And that X marks the center of the circle. So then I'm going to just go ahead and do like an arc. Like that. Okay. Then keeping that same distance, I now flip it around so that the pointy bit is on the other diameter. And I go like that. So it's a little bit hard to see. We can see that. And then we're going to go there. And then basically my perpendicular bisector. So I definitely know that it is, I definitely know that it's perpendicular because it's going to be a beautiful vertical line. And because I use that endpoint here, it has to be parallel to the tangent. So it is indeed perpendicular. And all the radii of a circle are congruent. So then I can kind of prove that I bisected it. So then to make my square, I simply connect the points of my two diameters.
Oh, it's run better! It's run better! Marina, run slow.
Okay.
And left your reading faster than that. Oh boy, okay.
All right.
Everybody, it is run!
It is possible to make a pentagon, but it's a little bit more intensive. So we're just going to kind of stick with these basic shapes for our Celtic knot bases. The circle, the hexagon, the triangle, and then the square. Okay. So when we want to build a Celtic knot, what we're essentially doing is we are mapping out the curves here that then give us our inside design. So I'm going to show you how to do I believe it's called a tricycle. I'm probably saying that incorrectly, um, but it's a three-armed
Unlike
knot drawing. And
oh
so
god, it's Stephanie. It's
what we want to
Stephanie.
do is we want to first off just draw a circle.
Definitely, definitely. Corners, why? Rowan, not this way. Not this way, Rowan.
Okay. I find it easier to move my paper sometimes than
As
to
long as it
move the
fits,
compass,
for
especially this
me,
compass.
too many tabs.
Then what I want to do is, again, I want to do my 6 marks. But in fact,
Oh,
I'm actually going to draw my
it's too
arcs
long.
out.
Okay.
Okay. Oops.
Slowly drifting over to my final tab.
Okay. And
That's hilarious. Will I lose my dragonfly when I die? Oh no.
okay. So I can see here that I have like that inner bit to my design.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to just kind of quickly
I
make it a
know.
little bit darker.
Stephanie's tasks are not done.
Okay. Now, a Celtic knot is a whole bunch of like interwoven strands. And so, what I want to do is, I want to create a thicker band, but I want it to be the same width. Okay. So, what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to create a really tight tricycle. So, I'm just going to kind of go like this. Ooh, 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 that's horrible. Well, okay. I'm going to do that at each. Oh no, I don't need to do that there. I'm only going to do that at the parts that give me the intersections here.
No. Okay.
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 So
In the
then,
nick of time.
what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to erase. I'm going to just make my
Oh, are you done?
tricycle a little bit darker.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, this was fun, folks.
And if I did everything correctly, I'll then be able to go through and do the over under effect. So we can see the inside. And then this is the outside band. And then here, do that. And then here. Okay. And so we can kind of see the overall pattern. Where the magic really happens is when we go over it and we put in the effect of kind of like the over under sort of thing. So the way I keep track is when I make a line. I'm trying to see. Do I have? I don't want to use my X bar. That's a little bit darker. Okay. So when I make my line, I'm actually gonna stop here and have this part go over. And so I make sure to keep track by completing the rest of that arc. So I'm like, okay, I came in from the inside, I hit a line, And so I'm like, oh, I want that part to go under, so then I can erase this part. Okay. And then what I can do is I can finish up this inside. And then I'm going to do that so it comes back down to the main arc. And then it comes over like that. And so because this arc went under, now it's going to go over. Kind of following the rules here. And that's going to go over. So then this gets erased. And then this part comes over. And then what you have is you got yourself a Celtic knot. Woo! All right, I'm going to try another version of this, but I'm going to actually try to do it so that there's a little bit of space in between. So what I think I need to do it, I've actually never drawn it like this before, so we'll see. What I think I need to do is I need to do the basic arcs, but then I need to do a bigger arc and then an even bigger arc over it. So it's almost like it's kind of coming out over like that. And I mean, it should work. And then there should be some like in between space. So let's give it a shot and see what happens. You know what? I'm going to turn on some music so that way it's not just like silent while I'm drawing. What are we in the mood for? I just personally love this channel so much. Okay. So again, we start with our circle. I'm gonna do it kind of small. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta leave the past behind just to find out where you're going. They try to tell you you should take your time, but inside your heart you know it. Don't try to stay. Sometimes you gotta leave the past behind just to find out where you're going. I know you're scared to take a chance to fly. So when you're doing this triple pattern, you kind of want to draw the arc on every other one. I will admit, I have not done any research into whether or not this is how they actually drew Celtic knots back in the past. They just kind of like freehanded it, but it's one way to get some beautiful designs. Make sure I go all the way here. That seems huge. I think my compass shifted, which is unfortunate. That looks a bit better. Ooh, that's too small. What is happening? Okay, kind of sort of see the pattern here. Do I dare do it in pen? I think so. Okay. I'm gonna have, so yeah, I want this outside to go over. And again, I'm not going to do the innermost one because I want to have that little bit of gap where they overlap. So I'll do that. Let's see. And that goes over. Goes under. In a moment of, no, did I mess up? Oh, that's so cool. That did exactly what I wanted. Bam! So, if you want to like build off this pattern, what you can do is you can like build off of the points. So like if I wanted to maybe do like another little triple, another little tricycle on the end here, what I could do is just kind of draw like another smaller circle. So let's say, make sure we keep the same size. Right? Okay. So now I have those circles. Let's see. I want to do little baby ones. But I want the tips to touch, just the tip. So what I actually need to do is draw another circle on the side here. That definitely shifted. Okay. So we have our circle that we're actually going to work on. So to get there, I drew a circle on the tip, and then I used that circle to draw the other one. I probably should have like lined it up, like if I really wanted to, but I'm just kind of jamming here. Let's see what we're gonna get from here. And the thing is, I don't actually. Again, I want the tips to touch. Raining. Okay, cool. Yay, we need it. like this. Okay. And I just realized like having the tip touch there is kind of bad because I wanted, and you know what I could do here? We're gonna do this. So I'm gonna go to the inside of this one. Probably shouldn't have done the other one in pen, but I'm going to show you what I'm trying to do here in Uno Momento. I'm going to do a tight one on the ends. And so then what we actually get here, like just kind of ignore that piece here. It's kind of like it comes up. And then this part comes down. This part goes up and over. If you think this would be something that you guys would like more videos on, drop me a comment on the Facebook page. And so then you can kind of see how like it builds off of it. So actually, I'm going to start a new pattern. So I think I'm going to start with a square. We're going to do kind of like a cross. And then at the tips of the cross, I'm going to do the 3-prong pattern. So I think that's going to look really pretty. So let's just kind of have some fun with it, yeah? So I'm going to start. Jeez, man, that's crazy. That definitely moved. Oh no, okay, didn't. Yay. Alright, and then basically all you need to be super successful in drawing Celtic knots is a really good compass and straight edges and really good erasers. So we're going to draw a line through here. And so this is going to mark the corners of my cross, and so then I need to draw my perpendicular bisector. Alright, so to draw my cross here, let's see. Basically, I could just use... I'm going to just kind of do the same idea with the triple point pattern, but I'm going to... like the width going on here. So then I'm going to use that width. This one. So what I have here is I kind of have like two intersecting eye shape patterns. Let me actually erase the center line now. I don't really need those. This is why you need a good eraser, not the crappy one that I have on my pencil. And then we go like so. Oh god, these are not the same width at all, but that's okay. What I'm doing is I'm kind of establishing the over-under pattern. But I'm not going to do it in pen just yet. So we have that here. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to do the 3-point pattern on each of the corners. So to do that, first we draw a circle. Pay attention. So because I want the point of the circle to be facing each other, not the point of the circle, sorry, the point of the triangle facing the point of my cross. Okay, so I'm just kind of just drew like these lines here. I need to get better lighting in here so you guys can actually see what the heck I'm doing. So sorry. If you want me to get better lighting, buy me a coffee so that way I can get better equipment. I appreciate all the equipment that my husband's letting me use. But I would like to get like a better lighting setup in here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of use this point to kind of roadmap what we want to do. So, again, I want the point of the 3 pattern to kind of do like that number. Alright, so then I use the same width. Okay, so then I have my basic pattern, and I want it to be the same width here. So what I'm going to do is go back here, and now open it to match where that one is. And then just kind of make it go out like that. Okay, so then what I want to do is I want to continue my pattern. So we'll see. So because this strand went under, it has to go over. And then it's going to go under the next one. And then it's going to go over. is why you do stuff in pencil, kids. Okay, so it went over, then it should go under. It should go under. So then this part. That should go under. That part's over. That part goes over, then under. Okay. And so then we have one part of our cross. And so then just rinse and repeat on the other 4 sides. Okay, this center bit is just like way too fat. I don't like it. I'm going to change it. So I really like the width going here. So let's see. That's going to be that. Oh my god, that is so much better. Okay. Whew. All right. So then on this corner, we do the same thing. Let me just get my circle because I want everything to be pretty much the same. So I'm just kind of flying through the portions. Feel free to ask me questions about the process. I'm just kind of getting into the zone here. Oh no. Spooky thoughts. My daughter would love it. She was obsessed with spooky, scary skeletons for like ever. In fact, I think she still is. Tried to hide it from her on her playlist, and she keeps finding it. I really like this though. This song is quite cool. Alright, so we're kind of getting there. can kind of see too how you can create like interlocking patterns by doing arcs just like along the diameter. So like if we wanted to make this center a little bit more interesting, what we could have potentially done was done like a quarter arc like right here. So done one that's about half of the diameter or something. Kind of broken up that diameter to make it some like interweaving ones, just to make it a bit more interesting. Okay, let's keep going. I slipped. You know what? I've been a fool. I should just extend this as a bit. Because then that gives me the arcs I need. I'm trying to remember how I first came across this method for doing Celtic knots. I probably found it on the internet. I was obsessed with Celtic knots. I have another technique for making Celtic knots, or at least just like single line ones. And I made like a whole alphabet. Like I was deep in just making these, because I love the fact that all we're doing is we're just using bits of a circle and putting it together in just like a really artistic way. Sorry. Okay, so let's see, I'm over, so I'm just go under. Kind of like after a while, it's just like with the origami, it becomes repetitive, and you're just like, oh, okay. And there. Okay. Sorry, my neck got really sore. Okay, last one. I'm really excited that you can actually now kind of see the circles that I'm drawing. At least. let's see, this went over, so then it needs to go under. Mechanical pencil's not really for this load. And there you have it, folks. We have a pretty snazzy cross here. And all that's left is to kind of color it and jazz it up a little bit. Looking around, seeing what sort of coloring things I have. But I think I'm going to do that offline, and I might try and clean it up a bit. But basically, you can just ink it and then erase all of your pencil marks, and you have a really, really amazing Celtic knot. Let's see. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to end it here tonight. I've had an exhausting week, but thank you guys so much for sticking around with me, and I really appreciate you all coming to office hours and hanging out, on your Friday night. Please make sure, if you haven't done so already, to check out the YouTube channel and also the Facebook page. All links and everything are linked on the Facebook page. I post updates, inspirational thoughts, also links when a new video drops. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. We are so close to being able to get our own custom URL, so that's really, really exciting. Yeah, and if you want more videos on like how to draw Celtic knots, or really just on anything, please drop me a comment on Facebook or send me an email at officehourswithml@gmail.com. Let me know what you guys want to learn about or what you want to talk about. I'm here for you. I'm just kind of pulling things out of my head that I'm like, oh, I would like to talk about this. But your questions are my number one priority. So, thank you again for sticking around with me, and I hope you guys have an excellent rest of your week, and I will see you next Friday. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.